All right, so I want to welcome everyone to this particular brown bag session. We have an extremely really good guest, Dr. Robinson Sibe from Nigeria. He has a PhD in cybersecurity. He has a master's in digital forensics, and he has a master's of engineering from the University of Port Harcourt in Nigeria. And his undergraduate degree is from River State University of Science and Technology. He has many years in cybersecurity and forensics, and he does a lot of work in Abuja, which is the capital of Nigeria. So today I would, just honored that you're here, and I would just turn it over to you to present and talk about forensics from in Nigeria.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mo, for having me, and a very good evening, and I believe it's a good afternoon to you over there. It's a pleasure to be here to join Dr. Mo and speak about a few things about Nigeria, and hopefully maybe in future I'll have the opportunity to also listen to you and also hear your side of things, So thank you very much for having me. I have a set of slides just to guide our conversation and also for you to see a few things about what we're doing here. So I'll skip some. I've already been introduced. Basically, I'm Dr. Robinson Tombari Sibe, been in the space for about 2 decades, the co-founder, CEO, lead forensic examiner also of Digital Footprints Nigeria Limited. I'm a member of the Forbes Technology Council, and a whole lot of stuff which you would be able to check through on the slide at your spare time. So basically Nigeria, before I start talking about it, let me introduce you to a bit to where I'm coming from. Cybersecurity, there's a strong cultural component to cybersecurity. So it'll be good to share a bit of background of Nigeria. I'm sure you heard a lot about Nigeria already. The biggest country in the continent of Africa in terms of population. As a matter of fact, 1 in every 4 African is a Nigerian. 1 in every 5 person in the world of Black descent is also a Nigerian. So Nigeria is really big. Also in terms of the economy, Nigeria is the biggest economy in Africa. So Nigeria is also like the United States in terms of cultural diversity. We have over 250 cultures in Nigeria, mixed, very beautiful, nice people. I'm sure you would have heard about music and the food. I'm sure everybody out there would know in Nigeria in some way or the other. So it's a pleasure once again to be here to speak about what we do here in relation to the country where we practice, which is in Nigeria. So I'm sure you'll be wondering, what's the adoption rate in Nigeria in terms of technological adoption? I'm sure people don't have a very clear picture of what's going on in Africa and Nigeria particularly. But let me, the next set of slides will show you how rapid there's been a bit of technological adoption in the last couple of years. In Nigeria, particularly, if I'm to pin it to a particular event that catalyzed this rapid growth, that will be the liberalization of the telecommunication sector in about the year 2000 or 2001. But this followed the return to democratic rule. So prior to this time, telecommunication was a federal thing, just the government controlling all of the phone lines through an entity, a government-owned entity called NITEL. And so that monopolistic grip over the sector ensured that there was no growth in the sector. So as at about 2000, 2001, there were just less than 500,000 telephone lines in Nigeria for a very large country of that sort, just less than 500,000, less than 500,000 active phone lines in Nigeria. But following the liberalization, a lot happened, which the next 3 sets of diagrams will show you how rapid there has been, the growth has been in Nigeria, and how a good policy also has yielded so much growth. Sometimes when they tell you about Africa, you don't get to hear this other side of things, how there is growth too in other sectors. So for instance, today, as at August 2022, there is a total of 209 million active lines in Nigeria. Compare that to 500,000 line in about 2 decades ago. So a lot has happened. Today, Nigeria has a higher tele density than the United States of America. Nigeria's tele density is about 109%, 109.99%, so roughly 110% tele density, which is quite a large number in terms of if we're looking at tele density as an indices for measurement. Also, if you look at the next two diagrams also, by the way, this is courtesy of the NCC, the National Communications Commission, which is the central regulatory body for the telecommunications sector in Nigeria. Also, within this space of time, as at 2000, I'm not sure there was up to 2000 active internet subscribers in Nigeria, but as at August of this year, there are over 151 million active internet subscribers in Nigeria. Over 151 million. Such massive growth, such large number of folks out there using the internet in Nigeria. So a lot has happened. Nigeria is, technology is transforming a lot of things in Nigeria, transforming a lot of sectors, banking sector, and all of the other sectors, education, and even in very critical public-centric activities such as in elections. Nigeria started using technology progressively from 2011 when the voter register was digitized down to when the smart card reader was used in 2015, and then next year's election, which would use the bimodal voter accreditation system, which is also a very good solution to ensure the quality of elections are better. So basically, Nigeria has had a rapid growth in the last couple of years, unprecedented growth in ICT adoption. Also, if you look at in terms of growth contribution, in year 2000, information and communication technology was contributing less than 1% to the nation's GDP. But as at the Q1 reports of Nigeria's GDP, information and communication sector accounted for over 16% of the GDP, which is quite a contribution if you look at where we're coming from. Also, this has catalyzed growth in other sectors such as finance, and other areas, education, and so on and so forth. Also, if you look at in terms of investments that has come to Africa, African businesses, unicorns, these are businesses that are worth at least $1 billion. About 7 of them have sprung up in Africa in the last couple of years, and 5 of those 7 are in Nigeria, and all 5 of them are technologically driven companies. These are entities that are either using technology to provide service or using technology to enable their service provision. So if you also look at in terms of emerging technology, you'd be surprised that a few years ago, in fact, Nigeria, in terms of crypto adoption, used to be number 6, according to Chainalysis. They just dropped to number 11 recently, according to Chainalysis, and I believe that's largely due to the clampdown of cryptocurrency by the country's central bank of Nigeria, that's the CBN. Also, technology is driving a lot of things. Like I said, it's driving the nation's elections and other public-centric activities, sensors, and so on and so forth. So with all of this new technological adoption in different sectors and in different areas, with phones getting into, in fact, at least if you share all the phone lines in Nigeria to go around all the citizens, and you'll still be left with some. So with all of these phones, all these devices, and all this entering, every citizen's hands. So basically this comes with emerging threats. There is an increased attack surface. There are more persons handling devices. Therefore, there's larger propensity. There's more propensity for attacks to happen. So there is also, I'm sure if you've been listening to the news, there's a rising case of cybercrime. Nigeria, like is one of the hotbeds of cybercrime in the world. That's not to say there are no good companies. There are good companies out there like us that's also helping to do very great things, and particularly also helping the authorities to catch the bad guys. So all of these, plus all of the devices getting into many hands with very little knowledge and very little sophistication of how to protect themselves. So there's also a gap in cybersecurity awareness. So let us look at this. I've tried to prepare this talk from a funnel perspective. So we'll try to talk about Nigeria, and then we gradually, gravitate in the direction of where we're going to. So if you look at the cybersecurity legal and regulatory landscape in the US, I know you have several laws that are related to cybersecurity, from FISMA, HIPAA, Sarbanes-Oxley, all of those laws that are either directly or indirectly related to cybersecurity. So I did try to write a few of those in Nigeria that's related to cybersecurity, top of which is the Nigerian Constitution. Every law in the land derives their legitimacy from the 1999 Constitution, and the last was in 1999, so we call it 1999 Constitution. The next I'd like to highlight is the EFCC Act in 2002. EFCC is the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Prior to the enactment of a proper central legislation for cybercrime, this used to serve as the closest to a legislation for cybercrime. So these gave a lot of impetus to the fight against cybercrime. Also followed by this is the Advanced Fee Fraud and Other Related Offenses Act of 2006. And then, very interestingly, the Evidence Act of 2011. So also, I'm sure you'll be surprised to know that prior to 2011, digital evidences, electronic evidence was not accepted, was not admissible in Nigerian courts. So it took up until 2011 where this was amended. And so that paved the way for the admissibility of digital evidence in Nigerian courts, which is a major breakthrough in terms of jurisprudence and also in terms of the legal side of things. Very importantly also is the Cybercrime Act of 2015, which was Nigeria's first, central and, solely designed law for cybercrime. It was enacted in 2015, has not been amended since then. A lot of calls has come for the amendment of it. Also of note is the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation. Now, for students of cybersecurity, we all know the importance of data regulation in today's world. In Europe, you have the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. In Nigeria, we have the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation. In the US, I'm sure US doesn't have a central law, but you have in different states and so on. And then also the right to privacy, which is derived from your central constitution. Apart from that, we also have another act of parliament, which is pivotal if you're talking about technology generally in Nigeria. It's the National Information Technology Development Agency, the NITDA, which was enacted in 2017. And then also several organizations or other institutions do release their either regulation or policy or strategy. For instance, the Office of the National Security Advisor, which plays a very pivotal role in Nigeria's fight against cybercrime, cyber attack. They released the National Cybersecurity Policy Strategy document in 2021. Prior to that, I think there was one released in 2014, and then this was an upgrade of that one. And then there are others, but these are some of the very key ones to mention. If you're talking about the cybercrime agencies in Nigeria, these are the top ones. One is the Office of the National Security Advisor. Like I just said in the previous slide, they do release the National Cybersecurity Policy and Strategy. They coordinate the nation's cyber attack, the corporate cyber strategy of Nigeria. Also, they are behind the NG certs, which is the Nigerian equivalent of what you have in the US, which is the CERT, the Computer Emergency Response Team. Also, the Nigerian Police Force, Nigeria practices a central police system, unlike in the US where you have state police. Nigeria has a central police, so there is a specialist elite unit of the Nigerian police force. They have the cybercrime unit, and they are supposed to prosecute that in that regard. Also, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, which I had mentioned earlier, formulated by the EFCC Act of 2002, they also prosecute cybercrime, money laundering, advanced fee fraud, and so on and so forth. So these are the three top cybercrime agencies. There are other agencies that derive their, directly or indirectly, they're related to it. The military, the army, the navy, and so on and so forth. So, what are the opportunities in cybersecurity in Nigeria? I mentioned large population, high technology adoption. Today, there are a lot of businesses being driven by IT. There are lots of phone lines out there, tele-density of approximately 110%. Total phones in Nigeria, active phones, over 200 million. And total active internet subscribers, over 151 million. All of these are possibilities, increased attack surface, increased potentials, increased potential for attack, propensity for attack. So with that, it means that you have more markets in Nigeria. So Nigeria is a very vibrant market, begging for attention for cyber security, for digital forensics. Nigeria is Africa's largest economy. A lot is happening in Nigeria. 18 of the 20 top West African banks are in Nigeria. They're Nigerian banks. Nigerian banks are all over Africa. So Nigeria is a big, vibrant economy of possibilities. Also, I've talked about increased internet penetration. Then there is a big gap from the technical point of view as technology practitioners, as cybersecurity students and cybersecurity practitioners. There is a big gap in terms of technical capabilities and cybersecurity skill set. There are not many very skilled people. And of course, the brain drain of the skilled ones get poached by other countries, so there are not very many specialist organizations or skilled persons in that regard. So there's a big gap in terms of technical capabilities and cybersecurity skill. Also, there is a low level of cybersecurity readiness. I'm in the business, so I can tell you a lot of companies are struggling even to understand that there's a potential that they could be attacked. So they wait until they are attacked, and it's often very costly to do so. Also, there is a low level of digital forensic readiness, and I can tell you very clearly, as someone in that space, there's very low level of cybersecurity, of digital forensic readiness, both in the corporate institutions and in the private institutions, in the public space and in the private space. Also, Nigeria, one of the hotbeds in cybercrime, very high and rising case of cybercrime. So with all of this comes the opportunity as a practitioner to help industries, to help businesses proactively protect their digital infrastructure, and also in the wake of an attack to be able to help them to investigate in a forensically sound manner and in a legally defensible manner. Also, if you look at one of the ways as a business person in a country, you look at the projections, the direction of the Nigerian growth projection is in the direction of technology. Technology is going to drive a lot of businesses. The next set of growth, if you look at the growth prospects, they're anchored on technology. So with this also will come the opportunity for us as cybersecurity experts and as cybersecurity practitioners. And then also very importantly, if you've been following the news, you're interested in geopolitical news, what's going on in Africa, there has been the African Continental Free Trade Agreement area, which is basically trying to make Africa look like the EU, where you have free trade among African member states. And potentially this gives you access to about 1.2 billion in terms of market size, because that's what the new African market size will be when it eventually comes mainstream. So with that, from a projection point of view, there is a lot of opportunity in Nigeria and in Africa generally. So, having talked about Nigeria, let me now narrow down to what we do. Like I mentioned, I am the co-founder of Digital Footprints. We are a cybersecurity and digital forensic company located in Abuja, Nigeria. Abuja is Nigeria's capital, just like as you have DC. So I'll just walk you through a few of what we do on a day-to-day basis. Basically, like I said, digital forensics and cybersecurity. So I'll start with what we do in terms of digital forensics. A very important part of the journey in this space is the admissibility of digital evidence, which was occasioned by the amendment of the Evidence Act of 2011. With that, courts can now entertain digital evidence and make a valid case out of it and so on. So this gave impetus for companies like us to be able to, set up shop for digital forensics. So what do? We do computer forensics, which means that we're able to investigate computing systems, from laptops to servers, whatever, as long as it's a computer. So there might be an incident, there might be a cyber attack, or it's part of a routine investigation, or part of employer device misuse investigation. So we do that for computer forensics, Windows, Linux-based systems, Mac-based systems, using some of the tools you may have heard or you're already used to, from FTK to OS forensics, and even to the open source ones which you probably have already tried your hands on, such as Autopsy. Also mobile forensics, which is basically investigations around mobile devices, around your phone, your drones, and so on and so forth. Nigeria has a very high tele-density, over 200 million mobile active phone lines, which means that each of these carry very important artifacts that could tell a story. In fact, it's very difficult now for a crime to occur without some role or some artifact that a mobile device, either a smartwatch or a phone, either by way of negotiating the crime through the phone or discussing the proceeds of crime or something. But your mobile phones do carry very important artifacts. So mobile forensics is what helps to bring out all of these artifacts and help tell the story that can help solve a crime or solve a puzzle or some question that needed answer. Also forensics, network forensics. We live in a networked environment, a networked world, interconnected world. So we are able to carry out a forensic investigation if there is a network attack. Incident response, we're also able to do cloud forensics. IoT forensics, not very common here, but we can do that as well. By the way, there are lots of smart, homes coming up in Nigeria as well as part of the, in the highbrow areas. So yes, these things are now gradually coming in here. SCADA forensics, SCADA supervisory control and data acquisition is in the industrial space. Also, experts witness litigation, expert witness and litigation support. One of the things with forensics is that the case could potentially get into court. So when it gets into court, you have to make sure that the evidence was, forensically sound and it's legally defensible. And if you're to appear in court, then you also have to have the right level of qualification to be able to give your testimony. So you have to be properly qualified. You have to have the right level of certification. The DOBAT standard in the US is also derived in many other legislations across the world. So you have to have the right level of qualifications, and we have some of those qualifications that qualify us as expert witness. Also, Nigeria has a very low level of cybersecurity readiness, low level of digital forensic readiness. So it's such a tall order to even expect the institutions to even have a forensic laboratory. So, but what we do as a service is where we identify that this organization needs this, in view of the kind of work they will be doing, then we also offer that as a service by helping them set up a forensic laboratory, train their staff, get the place ISO certified, and put in place SOPs and processes and help them mainstream before we pull away. So these are some of the things we do. We also do data recovery. At the moment, we even have a project which we're rounding off. There's the institution in Nigeria that the insurance that the institution that insures banks, which means that when banks do fail, they step in and make sure that depositors are properly settled. So there were some banks that failed over the years, a long time ago, many years ago. And because there was no technology to access these servers and the systems left behind, they couldn't really get a lot of data. So we were approached and we're recovering data from over 100 servers, failed bank servers, and helping to get information that could be used to help them in terms of deciding what to settle depositors and so on and so forth. So it's a very critical role that forensics play, very critical role that cybersecurity play in a lot of sectors. And by way of practice, you're going to come across this almost on a daily basis. So just what you have on your screen is a cross section of our forensic laboratory and some of our staff on the left side of the screen. We have our forensic lab in Abuja. Also, these are some of our staff doing their thing. What you have there, there's a small an electronic microscope, and then a Celebrite UFED, which is a mobile forensic tool. Celebrite is an Israeli company, but I think they're now quoted in New York Stock Exchange. What you have on the right of the screen is a forensic duplicator. Basically, the good old rule of forensics, never analyze the original. So when an evidence item comes, what you're expected to do is to make at least 2 forensic copies of it. So you can analyze one and keep one, and make sure that the original is safe. So what this does is to be able to forensically duplicate more than one device at a time. So it's a forensic duplicator. Also some cross-section of, on the left is yours truly doing an analysis, and on the right is also a cross-section of some of our staff members, young people like, young people also making their own contribution in the space. A typical day-to-day scenario. So this is one of the cases where we were called to the client's office. So that's the client's office. This is a recovery, a data recovery process, some very old servers, and they needed to get information out of it. A forensic duplicator is at the middle, and also the recovery process on the right of your screen. So let's move now to the cybersecurity side of things. What do we do? Basically divided into 2 segments, cybersecurity advisory and consulting services, and on the other side, managed cybersecurity services. So we help organizations do things like cyber risk assessment. We also do things like system hardening, network security, cybersecurity, security operations center, that's a SOC, incident response. We do vulnerability assessments and penetration testing, threat intelligence, virtual CISO as a service, and all of the other things, down to what appears to be the simplest of it, but what we have found to be the most crucial, which is cybersecurity awareness training. We do that from time to time for organizations. So we found out that this is one of the areas, simple but very crucial, that most companies do neglect, and they pay dearly for it. For managed cybersecurity service, which is companies who don't want to invest in these services and man it by themselves, we can help them, take some of the burden off them and offer it as a service. managed SIM as a service, managed SOC as a service, managed NOC as a service, and so on and so forth, managed web and email security. So basically, this is what we do from the cybersecurity side of things. This is what we do in this space. There's a lot of opportunities out there, and the forensic discipline, the cybersecurity discipline is, they're the rock stars of the moment, because the world will continue to embrace digital adoption. There will be more and more, particularly in Africa, because we're just picking up. So a lot is happening, and a lot will continue to happen in the next 20 years. So there will be more jobs, more cybersecurity jobs here. Like I mentioned, next year is Nigeria's election. They're using a new technology called the BVAS, Bimodal Voter Accreditation System. Expectedly, most of the post-election litigation may rely on digital forensic experts to be able to solve some of the problems of, in Nigeria, there's always a lot of court activities after elections. It's not in America where, the loser congratulates and goes away. Here, they sue you in court. You have to prove that you didn't rig the election and so on and so forth. So you'll find a situation where, as a forensic person, you might be the one that would help a judge decide a case. So that is how important your role could be. So once more, I want to thank you for the opportunity to have me here, and I'd be very glad if there are questions to take them either now or offline.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Robinson, for giving us the session today. I'm glad that I have attended it today. I get to know a lot of knowledge about how people are developing more and more in Nigeria. So I just got through your slides, and I just saw that there are over 150 million people do get active internet subscription. Like, is it the number really true?
Yes, that's true. The number is from the national NCC. NCC is Nigeria's regulatory agency for the telecommunication sector. So that is for the month of August 2022. That is correct.
Oh, that's amazing. Like, people in Nigeria is really developing. I really just that's
Yeah.
commendable. So, they were mentioned that you also do data recovery, and
Yes.
there are many other things. So, are there any specific tools that you use basically?
Yeah, so we use a lot of tools, one of which I'm sure you probably know, like we use ESOS.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, in the course of the project which we have currently, we discovered we got a lot of challenges. There are a lot of other tools. For instance, there's a tool called Salvation Data. Um, if you could check them out, they're also very expensive. If you're using the main database forensic tool. So because we were dealing with banks, so yes, we were recovering them, but we couldn't access the database because the database, we don't have the parameters for it. So we needed to use another level of tools. So we did, at the end of the day, we did buy a lot of tools that are not very popular in the market. In fact, I can't even memorize the tools very recently.
Yeah.
So we bought at least 5 different tools. So you could see a tool that opened this particular banking application, but doesn't open the other banking application, because database forensics itself is a different ball game altogether.
That's great. Like, I'm assuming that I will be working like in Nigeria someday. Like, there are so many cybersecurity awareness. It's commendable. So thank you for
Thank
giving
you.
us the session. I'm glad I have attended the session. Thank you, Professor
Thank
Mr.
you.
Morris, for giving us the opportunity to attend the session. It is like a lot of awareness about cybersecurity, and especially that too in Nigeria.
Yeah, what we were mentioning earlier is that, I mean, think about cybersecurity. A lot of people just think to their particular region. Like if you're from Chicago, you just think Chicago or in the United States or India or where it may be around the world. And people don't understand about the opportunities that are global. In
Yeah.
Chicago, over what, 20,000 job openings for cyber. Globally, there's well over 1 million. And so imagine, so here we have an individual telling us that there is a need for cybersecurity awareness and training in Nigeria. A population over 200 million, right? So that would tell us like, hey, there's opportunity to offer training services in Nigeria, right? We speak the same language. They have a good infrastructure, right? There's the ability to really make a difference and make money. And so these are just opportunities for us to know about. So you're learning these particular skills at the university. It's like, okay, well, I learned about forensics, I learned about, you know, cryptography, security engineering, business continuity, disaster recovery. Taking these skills and actually beginning to capitalize on these skills, everything that you've learned, and putting it into work.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. What you said, even I agree on that.
All right, so I have a quick question for you. So when you do your forensics work, is it mainly in like in Lagos and Abuja, or is it in other areas like Ibadan, River State? Like where are all the areas that your organization deals with?
Well, for us, because we do more of corporate investigation, so it's usually the big cities, Lagos and Abuja. But then if it's things like cybercrime investigation, which the authorities, the Nigerian police force, or basically and predominantly the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission do, that is across the entire state. And there's an interesting statistic. So the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission was set up to investigate financial crimes generally, which could include cybercrime, money laundering, fraud, and all of that, you know. And as at last year, over 90% of the convictions, I can't remember the exact number, but less than 1,000, but over 90% of that amount were cybercrime convictions alone. You know, so that would tell you, and for all of these convictions, there were forensic investigation, which were tendered in courts, and there were expert witnesses and all of this. So there is a lot of activities going on there, particularly in the investigation space. And I have done research in that regard, and I identified in my research, identified some of the other gaps, some of the gaps in the law enforcement. So yeah, we look at it, even if you look at the routine activity theory, which basically narrow into the lack of a culpable guardian and use that as you know, a basis for why there are more cyber criminals out there, because maybe say the Nigerian police force is not properly equipped with the right forensic resources. Yes, to some extent that is correct, but then this now goes back into what you just said, which is in terms of the cybersecurity awareness and also the societal contribution to these things, because I also found in that study that peer pressure, greed, and some other cultural push, you know, is one of the things that's making these numbers rise. So there is a big opportunity out here because the adoption will only get more, and more companies are going to use IT, and more attacks are happening by the day. Even rogue nation states, which you're already aware of, that always attack the US, are also attacking this place too. The banks in Nigeria, you'll be amazed that Nigerian banks have a very high level of cybersecurity adoption, a very high level of adoption. And I can say this authoritatively. The Nigerian banks are mature in terms of cybersecurity, but that doesn't mean that they're not hit. They are also hit, just like the banks elsewhere are hit. But the good thing is that all of these activities, you know, is bringing up more awareness. People are getting more aware, and the more aware they are, the more the market, you know, is ready for us as students who are getting into the industry. And then also one thing we need to know is the cross-border implication of things like cybercrime. So cybercrime knows no boundaries, knows no borders. Somebody in the comfort of his building in Moscow or Nigeria or US can wreak havoc elsewhere. So if you're in the cybersecurity space, you should be aware of what is happening everywhere, because in trying to solve a problem or solve a crime. You check up an IP address, it takes you to another country. You find, oh, which ISPs, gave out this IP address. You find the ISP, oh, the ISP is in Bulgaria. And then you find, oh, the ISP has a parent company in Netherlands. And all of these jurisdictions have their own complexities. So as a cybersecurity person, you should be an international minded person. You should be interested in geopolitics. You should be interested in jurisdictional implications, because there are lots of jurisdictional handshakes. The FBI and the Nigerian police force are in constant handshake when it comes to cybersecurity. Same thing with the Metropolitan Police. All of the nations, because of the fact that it is a cross-border activity. So cybersecurity itself, which seeks to proactively protect assets and all of this, it also has a cross-border outlook.
So last item, I was thinking about how you said in 2011, only then was digital evidence sort of admissible. So if you had someone like Hush Puppy in 2010 and before, then he would still be out roaming free. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah. Yes. Before 2011, digital evidence was not admissible in court. Nigeria was still using the old Evidence Act, which was bequeathed to us by the colonial authorities. So it took a long time before digital evidence was accepted in the courtroom. There are lots of arguments why this happened. It's not only Nigeria, by the way. Most of the developing economies struggled. It took a long while before the courtroom accepted digital evidence. A lot of things. One, the abstract nature of it. Two, the complexity, the volatility, the fact that it changes, the fact that it could, the judge doesn't understand what a hash is. If, for instance, you want to argue to the judge that, look, this device is not the device that they took from me at the time they took it from me. This was the hash. Can we check the hash now to see if they are tampered with my evidence? The judge doesn't understand all of those things. So I think the fact that when you don't understand something, you try to resist it. I guess that's why it took that long. But fortunately, it was amended in 2011, and since then, a lot has happened. The case of Hush Puppy wasn't even caught in Nigeria, so the Nigerian law can't take credit for that. And quite often there has been those who argue that, of course, there hasn't been that kind of Hush Puppy-like high-profile case prosecuted in Nigeria. But good thing is that that law is now in place. The next argument will be, what is the level of the forensic readiness of the justice system? How well are they aware of the language of forensics or the language of cybersecurity? Because that also is another very critical opportunity out there, getting the justice sector up to speed. And I have made a lot of presentations in that regard. About 3 months ago, I was also delivering this kind of talk at the Nigerian Bar Association, which is an annual conference of lawyers in Nigeria. Also, the judges, I've spoken to the judges as well. So there's a lot of opportunities in that space.
Right. So any other questions?
No, I think we are good here. I have cleared my doubts, and it was a really a wonderful session. I hope that people, Nigeria people do get more development day by day, and hopefully, other international people are coming there and working there.
Yeah, we're hoping for the best. Things will only get better. Next year is another election, another opportunity. From my presentation, you saw that gradually things are shaping up. It might take a bit long, but there has been technological improvements, for instance, in elections. So the election of next year, technology is expected to play greater role, which would improve the quality of election. Once the quality of election is right, the quality of leadership is right. Once the quality of leadership is right, then development will come. So yes, we are marching on in the right direction, and we believe that we will get better by the day.
Yeah, I really wish you all the best for that. Hopefully, the next elections would be great for you as well.
Thank you. We hope so.
I want to ask who you're voting for.
Well, I'm not. I don't know how many of the candidates you're aware of, but I think I'm voting for.
I'm going to be posting this online. So we'll table it for after I stop recording.
After this, that's fine.
All right. Well, again, I would like to thank you. This has been a very educational presentation. We've learned a lot about Nigeria, forensics, state of forensics there, what's needed, and opportunities for individuals who are considering doing work in Nigeria or with Nigeria. So again, I would like to thank you, and this is going to conclude the recording.